send you a copy of the recording, all right?
Okay.
All right, so what's on the screen now?
Okay, so should all employees then, Richard and Kerry need to put out a notification if they want employees back on? Well, the first is a public holiday, so it'll be the 4th.
Yeah, but we need Richard and Kerry on this call. Do you think you could just phone them and find out why they haven't connected? I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's do this. Narita, let's do this. Why don't you log off of this call, phone them, find out why they haven't connected, because you used the link to come in, right?
Yes.
And they had the same link. So just ask them why they haven't connected. Yeah. We are talking about lifting the lockdown, and we're also talking about all the other items on the agenda. So it's critically important that they participate. The recording. Okay. So what I am saying, Narita, is this, that if you look at the current level 4 restrictions, which are implemented from the 1st of May, all right, the following applies. Okay. First of all, under B, which is electricity, gas, and water supply, there are some UPAT products used to actually supply all of those industries with, for example, fixings and sealants and everything else, all right? Then, as far as manufacturing is concerned, you supply the companies that manufacture retail products, okay? In terms of...
I'm sorry, Gina's trying to call me back. Can I just take the call?
Of course you can.
Could be for 2 or 3 months.
All right, so let's try.
But the situation is right now.
Let's be specific. Let's just be specific. You deferred 50% commission. So what we want to say to them in that regard is repayable over 3 months after lockdown is lifted.
Yeah.
But now hold on a moment. One of the things we're going to talk about today is whether or not for you lockdown is lifted now from the 4th of May, because I'm going to say it is. Does that then mean repayable over 3 months after lockdown is lifted, just giving you a month to recover then, let's say?
Well, let's say, as far as we're concerned, lockdown isn't fully lifted on the 4th of May at all for us. And the fact of the matter is we this month, instead of getting between 10 and 12 million rand income, this month we're getting R1 million. So we cannot afford to pay.
Okay, so that's very, very important. Just hold on a moment. That's very, very important. We've had a 90% reduction in turnover.
Right.
That's the first thing we've got to be saying here, that the company has had a 90% reduction in turnover.
Right.
Is that the current state?
I would say about that, yeah.
Okay, this is critically important because remember that we've also got to communicate to all staff members, not just to the salespeople. So the current state is that for April we have had a 90% reduction in turnover because of lockdown.
And we do not see it improving much in May either.
Now, even though part of your business will be opened.
Well, if we're lucky, we'll get another 500,000 extra.
Okay, we only anticipate our loss coming down to 80%. So let's anticipate that once you're open, instead of only a 10% turnover, you'll make 20%. Let's just anticipate that, if that's all right.
Yeah, we anticipate max 20%.
All right, that's fine. So we're saying now the current, so this is important. And let me just do this as well. I just want to quickly say something here. To customers and staff communication. Because we want to basically talk to the customers in one way or another as well. So the current state of UPAT is, number one, that we've experienced for April, since April, because it will go on for May as well. So since April, we've had a 90% reduction in turnover because of the lockdown. And even though part of UPAT will be opened on 4th of May, We only anticipate our loss coming down to 80%. All right, that's the first point.
Right.
So that's the communication. That must go in our communication to them. Richard, hi. I see you've joined us.
Sorry, Ivor.
I was fine.
On a call to Switzerland.
Okay.
And frankly, I also had forgotten about it. Narita did remind me yesterday.
No problem.
And it's just been crazy.
No,
really.
I fully understand, sir. I fully understand. So there are 4 things on the agenda. The one is just to briefly talk about the current state of verification. But in fact, I'll do that offline with Narita. Narita and I can talk about that. Then we want to talk about the level 4 decision that you and Kerry have been talking about. We want to talk about the communication to salespeople, and we want to talk about the communication to Lunga. But I also think when we say salespeople, we want to say communication to customers and staff generally.
So, if I can ask,
yes, Richard.
Just repeat. You said communication to salespeople and communication to.
Okay, so I'm going to write it up again in the chat. Can you see the chat facility?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say, number 1, we want to talk about communication of the current state of UPAT to customers and staff. And what we want to do is we want to talk about communication to sales people. I did send the letter earlier. We want to talk about communication to Lunga. And in fact, I'm putting it down at 4, but we'll start off with this discussion. We want to talk about level 4 application for UPAT. In other words, the question of do you open, how much do you open, etc., etc. So those are the 4 things I'd like to discuss today. Communication on the current state of UPAT, communication to salespeople, communication to Lunga, and our level 4 application for UPAT. But we'll start with the level 4 discussion. You'll see on the screen that
can I add something there?
Yes, of course.
Because I've had a long discussion earlier with Wayne.
Yes.
Because we also need to generate communication for warehouse and for delivery drivers.
Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll put
because we certainly warehouse, delivery drivers, and the factories. We've got a factory that employs about 6 or 8 people, and Wayne is of the belief that he needs 2 people.
That's fine.
No, sorry, 10 or 12 people that we employ, and he needs 2 people.
That's fine. So we need to communicate then on a division by division basis.
Drivers, we don't need any drivers.
All right, on a division by division basis for the warehouse and delivery and factory generally. All right, okay, that's fine. So we've got 5 points on the agenda. Yes.
Sorry, and I also, I like what you've generated in terms of the sales. Kerry's got to agree to that, but I think the one thing that is missing there is a statement that we say senior management in the company have already, with the salary in April, taken a significant deferred reduction.
I want to just ask you, and you can tell me you don't want to comment on it, but if you had to look at yourself and Kerry for argument's sake, what would you say is the percentage of deferment that you've agreed to for yourselves?
40%.
Okay, this is very important. Just because in the communication, I want to start off by saying this is you know, this is the impact on you, let alone the rest of the staff. So that's critically important. Okay. Richard, you can see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, excellent, excellent. Good. So guys, look, let's start off. I want to start off with 4, which is actually what I want to start off as 1. So on the screen in front of you is, because I was having a discussion with Narita, who was saying that, you know, it's uncertain as to whether or not you will be opening at all, or how you will be opening. So I've actually said to her, okay, so then let's look at a way of just looking at level 4 and seeing where the justification is and what the costs would be if you were to actually open. So as we're going through it, I'm saying to her that first of all, in terms of some of what you have, some of the SKUs you offer to the marketplace, to businesses that supply other businesses or individuals, that everything to do with electricity, gas, and water, everything to do with manufacturing as it is spelt out, you're a critical supplier of product to the companies that are involved. For example, if you look at manufacturing, where it says manufacturing of retail products permitted to be sold under level 4 and all input products permitted that would be sold under level 4, you guys supply some of the material which is required by those manufacturing entities, whether it's generally, I'm not saying exclusively, and I'm not saying a big amount. I'm going through the entire list for you. All right. So wherever manufacturing takes place, there are SKUs that UPAT supplies involved in some of those manufacturing processes. Particularly if you look at automotive, if you look at cement and other construction materials and hardware, and then all other manufacturing scaling up to 20% of employment. So to start off with, in terms of C, you supply into the C companies. Then very much so, you supply into D, which is civil engineering for public works, critical public work construction, road and bridge projects, other public works, civil engineering projects, and critical maintenance and repairs. You very clearly supply into those industries. And then E, as far as wholesale and retail is concerned, you supply into E10 and you supply into E11, which is the hardware stores. But you equally supply into the others in some form or another. So, for example, if I think about K supplies into 13, which is packaging, ancillary products, etc. And what I'm trying to say is throughout all of this, there is a rationale for UPAT as a supply into all of these industries here being necessary. But as we go down the line in terms of transport, storage, services, as mining and quarrying, very, very definitely, you supply into all of those mining and quarrying sectors. You supply into repair and emergency related services, very definitely. And then from a supply chain point of view, your supply is critical in the supply chain of the entire economy. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because your opposition, Hilti, are fully open on the basis of them saying exactly the same thing. So the decision to you, and I'm going to put it down here, but let's talk through the entire decision as to what happens on the 4th of May. What is your thinking at this moment in time?
I'll start. What we want to do is, in terms of warehouse staff, maybe one person at receiving, one person at dispatch, having Wayne and 3 people in operations upstairs.
All right, just hold on a moment. So we're saying on warehouse, we want a skeleton staff, all right?
Correct.
On operations, just describe for me operations.
Well, operations are the people that, well, upstairs they do the invoicing, they do the procuring, they do the processing of incoming goods and outgoing goods. So it's an area where we normally would employ about 7 or 8 people, and we believe we can work with 3.
So
Richard, you must correct me.
Skeleton staff are 40% there. And then as far as the warehouse staff is concerned, the skeleton staff of what percentage?
15.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we've got warehouse, we've got our operations, and what else, Kerry? What other divisions? Sales?
Sorry, can I get back to that?
Yes.
Because Wayne has said that he would need in the warehouse 2 people in the receiving in the basement and 2 people in the dispatch.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 20%, I should imagine.
So instead of...
No, it's not that high.
So do we have any idea of how many people we've actually got in that whole division?
Yeah, look, some of these people are going to be also doing some of the factory work in terms of assembling builders packs, that type of thing, if they're not fully busy with...
Are you saying these 4 people, Richard? These 4 people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had to look at the entire complement of receiving, of warehousing, and then of, I don't know what you call that division, but let's call it the packing division or whatever, the picking and the pulling and the packing, it's 4 people in total out of I don't know how many people. So let's say it's 50.
Well, I mean, I can...
Have you got the numbers in front of you?
I would say... No, I will. I can do it mentally, or I'll just think about it and put sort of as I think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over there. Then 1, 2, 3 in there, plus in the packaging 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so we're looking at just in that area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 or 15 people.
All right, so we're saying 4 out of 15 people, which is roughly, let's say, 30%. Actually, 25%.
Yeah, okay.
So let's say,
Are you talking about all operations, because you haven't taken drivers into account?
No, I haven't. I was just talking of internal people. If we had to take the drivers, we've got another, I think we've got 5 drivers.
All right, so I'm going to wager to say that 15% is most probably right. Just we can be more specific down the line. But what we're really saying is that in that entire warehouse setup, we're talking about at least 15% of them being skeleton staff, and the balance being continuing to be laid off. That's the critical distinction that we're making, right? So 15% skeleton staff, which is back to work, and we need to say this here. And then the balance continuing to be laid off.
If I can just add there quickly, that's again, we need to decide on counter sales, and we've got 3 people in counter sales. My belief is we need 1. And this is going to be communicated.
I don't think we need 1 at the moment. I think maybe in a week or more's time, say into the second week in May, we might need somebody there.
Okay, I want to just quickly go back to what the regulations are going to say that might actually help you. So the regulations say this, that in opening up, okay, number 1, a small skeleton staff to clean, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's basically what they're saying from a regulations point of view. Then number 2, only 33% maximum of staff returning. Okay, and there they have to be inducted and acculturated. What that means is basically they need to learn the rules of hygiene, they need to learn the rules of social distancing, etc. And then number 3, another.
Sorry, Ivor, can I interrupt here?
Yes.
I think it's vitally important that Wayne be part of this conversation.
Okay.
So I'm going to send him the invitation that Narita sent me.
All right.
And I'm going to send him a message just to say, please join the meeting.
Okay. But while you're doing that, I'm just trying to point out to you that the regulations actually, Kerry, give you the luxury of what it is that you're trying to do, which is to say that we're not going to bring everybody back at once, but we're going to plan for them to come back in batches of 33%. And you can actually do that in such a way that you have a week between each 33% returning, or 2 weeks, or even longer. So what I'm trying to say is that's what the regulation looks like at this moment in time, Kerry. And I actually think it serves your purpose in trying to do what it is you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
Am I making sense? I know I'm sounding obtuse.
Yes, no, you are. I don't think it'll take 2 weeks, though. I think we'd be looking at 33 in a third now, and in a month. That's by fine. The end of May, another third.
Yeah, but you can say anything you want in that regard. So we can say that this 33 over here would be in 4 weeks, and the next 33 could be in 4 weeks. Now, let me tell you why that's such an important consideration financially, Richard. This consideration is important because the ones who are not returning, in other words, 3 and 4 under regulations, all right, those 66% who are not returning will be considered to be remaining in lockdown, and therefore you'll be able to be funded from TERS for the period of the lockdown. And I know that I'm just saying here of lockdown. And this applies, by the way, to those 2 groups there. So I'm just going to quickly.
I'm sorry. All I can say is, Kerry, can you please share your screen with me?
Narita, do you want to try and use your computer maybe to go online, though?
Okay.
Sorry, Narita, what did you say then?
I can only see Kerry. I can't see the screen.
Oh, okay. I didn't initiate my camera.
Yeah, if I take my camera away, I can see the screen.
So, guys, I'm saying that everybody should take their cameras off because of 2 things, so that you can see the screen, but also so that you conserve on bandwidth, so that there's no lag or delays.
Yeah.
So I think this is absolutely critical, and I am recording this session, by the way, anyway. But I think this is absolutely critical, colleagues, in saying to you the following, that, Richard, if we look at the regulations say that a small skeleton staff you need to clean for the first couple of days. So let's assume that you're going to use Monday to either Wednesday or Monday to Friday before anybody comes to work. So you're going to use the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. And you can change the dates. I'm not saying these should be your dates. I'm just using them as an example. So I'm going to say here, the 4th to the 8th of May should be a small skeleton staff to clean. And then from the 11th, all right, so from the 11th of May, this 33% of staff would be returning to work generally. And it can be less than 33%. But what they're literally saying is whoever must be returning, break them up into 3. All right. And if it's smaller, maybe 2. Okay. And then from the 19th, so the 11th of May would be when the next 33 return. And then what that does mean is for those 10 days, from the 1st until the 11th, for this group returning on the 11th of May, TERS would apply. All right. So you will be able to get TERS for the 1st until the 10th.
But I believe TERS is a nightmare.
It is an absolute nightmare at the moment. It is ridiculously, stupidly so. But you can have faith that even if it's not available immediately, it will eventually become available, and therefore you can't ignore it. It will be there, and you are basically building up a loan account from UIF to you until you get the money you need. But at the moment, it's a total nightmare.
So in the meantime, we've got to pay these people anyway.
Or not pay them. So that's a different issue, and we'll get to that. In fact, let's add that to the agenda, because that's critically important, what you've just said. I'm going to say here, 6, how do we pay people? And that's working and laid off. We need to talk about that, all right? So we'll address that under 6. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make, though, is that TERS would apply for that group coming back on the 11th of May from the 1st to the 10th of May. The rest of these guys, TERS would apply until they come back to work from the 1st of May. So I'm going to just say here, this group here, TERS until returning from 1 May. Okay, that's critically important for you to understand, that the benefit of them not coming back until you're ready for them is that TERS would apply until they return from the 1st of May. So TERS would apply from the 1st of May for those guys over there. So that's just generally the regulations in opening up. In fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it under a separate tab. Okay, so there are your regulations. The regulations in opening up. A small skeleton staff to clean, 4th to the 8th of May. Then only 33% maximum of staff returning who will be inducted and enculturated, and they'll get put to work from the 11th of May. So for them, TERS would apply from the 1st to the 10th of May. The next group, you could say in 4 weeks. And the next group, you could say in another 4 weeks. And you can play any way you want with, any of those aspects. They're just suggestions, the dates and the times. But I think that this is the mechanism that you need to be planning to use here. And I also do want to say this, and this is critically important, under level 4. Now, the jury is still out, and I'm saying this to all 3 of you, and please understand what I'm saying. I'm not trying to frustrate you. The jury is still out on whether Gauteng is going to do what KZN did. What the Premier of KZN did 2 days ago is he announced that even though the national lockdown is a level 4, because KZN is one of the 3 provinces that have been identified as the hotbed of COVID, he wants to keep KZN at a level 5. Now that has a significant implication, because it says to you that businesses in KZN are only going to be back to trading the way you've traded in April under the essential services provisions. I don't think that's going to affect you and your plans too greatly, because you're supplying essential services. But the point I'm trying to make is, if the Gauteng government decides to do the same as KZN, and the Western Cape government decides to do the same as KZN, then you're needing to know that you're trading then under level 5 restrictions and not level 4 restrictions. And that will significantly impact on it shouldn't impact on your planning, because your planning should stay the same, whether it's a level 5 or level 4, because you're supplying essential service product to essential service businesses, whether it's level 4 or level 5. But I just do want to say that the jury is out, because we've not seen any regulations yet. In fact, we haven't seen regulations for the whole week, believe it or not, since last Friday. So when the regulations come out, firstly, they're going to come out in a batch. They're not just going to come out individually. And they're going to try and deal with all of these things. The other thing that you've got to remember that's going to impact is that until the 27th, Monday, 12 o'clock, industries had an opportunity to say to DTI, we want you to change your list we want you to change this list here of what should be in each of these categories. So, for example, practical example, the flower retailer said, you're opening up agriculture here, so flowers will be produced, but there are no retailers to sell those flowers. So we need to be on the wholesale and retail list, just as an example. The hardware stores have made the same proposal, that what you've said under wholesale and retail is not enough for the hardware stores to justify opening up. We want to be able to sell hardware to everybody who wants it, including private citizens. Because at the moment, even under level 4, they can't sell hardware to private citizens unless it's for essential work. So those submissions were only made at 12 o'clock on Monday, and they are going to be decided upon and gazetted by Thursday, which is tomorrow. So all of this stuff here is up in the air at the moment, and I know it doesn't give you certainty. But what I'm saying to you as UPAT and as K is, if you follow this procedure here, you will be fine, and we'll be able to justify what we need to justify. Welcome, Wayne. I'm glad you've joined us. I'm going to go through this again now that Wayne has joined us.
And the orange to your right.
Yes, of course. Now, I've left it so that when Wayne joins us, we can take it into more detail. So if you look at what's in green, these are the current regulations as they apply to a level 4 or a level 5. Now, already you know that your KZ Marcus's operation will be working in a level 5 province. We haven't seen the Gazette yet, but the Premier, the KZN Premier, said that he wanted to keep KZN level 5, even though nationally we level 4, because of the fact that COVID is increasing, the number of people contracting, the number of people dying is increasing there. And he said the only way of controlling that is a complete lockdown as per level 5, which then means that we know that whatever we decide will impact differently on Marcus to the way it will impact on the rest of the country. It is possible that Gauteng makes the same decision as KZN and the Western Cape as well, because in fact the numbers in Western Cape and Gauteng are even higher than the numbers in KZN. So there's a lot of discussion going around at the moment in government as to the final alert levels. However, what I am saying is this: whether it's level 5 or level 4, these are the provisions that will apply to UPAT. Regulations say this: you open after the 4th of May with a small skeleton staff to clean. You can take as long or as short as you want to clean, but we're saying let's assume it'll be from Monday until Friday, just for argument's sake. So from Monday until Friday, the workplace is readied so that by the 11th of May, we are taking back 33% or whatever the number is you want to take back, but a third of that number on the 11th of May. They must be inducted and acculturated. They must get to work, but they must be following. You've got to have, and I'm going to put this down as well because this is critically important. You've got to have something called a standard operating procedure, which relates to health and hygiene.
Have you got that?
It relates to, so it's health and hygiene. It relates to social distancing. All right. So we've got to have a standard operating procedure in place that relates to.
We've got that.
When you say you've got them, where did you get them from?
Shaul has put that in place.
All right. So please, if you could let me have a look at it. I'm really not trying to put bureaucracy in. I'm just wanting to make sure that it's what they say. So if you could please send it to me, Wayne, I would appreciate that. The other thing I would recommend to you is this, and it's just something to think about. But I mean, I know, for example, that from a rental point of view, you could most probably be doing it for, let's just say, 3,000 Rand for your size of business a month on, let's say, an initial 6-month lease. But what it is it's, and there are a number of them going around, so we need to talk about the best ones, but it's a spray and sanitizing booth, because that should be enough to convince any of the police or any of the military that might want to ask, COPAS, see you open, come in and say, why are you trading? that in terms of your SOP, you're satisfying the SOP, and I'll send you some contacts in that regard as well. But for whether it's 3,000 or even if it's a small one, so you can get it anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 rand a month rental. But all I'm trying to say is what that does for you is it completely sanitizes people coming into your workplace. And they need to be wearing their uniforms when they go through it so that they are sanitized in the workplace. So they're not bringing the bug into your workplace. So that becomes part of your standard operating process. That's why you can see that you need to take a week to actually do that cleaning. In fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it under there. You take a week. You can do it less, but you take a week to do all of that stuff, to have your SOP in place, to put in place your spray and sanitizing booth, just to make sure that it's properly done. Then, and I'm saying, just if you follow the time frame, by the 11th of May, you're bringing back a third of the people you want to bring back. Now, we know that that's going to be in the Gazette because that's what the president announced when he did the announcement, all right? That you will bring your staff back 33% at a time after you've cleaned and sanitized the workplace. Critically important. After you've cleaned and sanitized the workplace. And a week later, after that, or a month later, because when we spoke now, Kerry said it might only be 4 weeks later that we bring the next 33% of the staff back. And then maybe even another 4 weeks before we bring the final 33% of staff back. And you can play with those gaps. It doesn't have to be 4 weeks. It can be 1 week in between, all right? It's absolutely up to you. But from a financial point of view, what you need to bear in mind is that you want to be in a position to keep the people you're not bringing back on TERS, which is the temporary employee relief, for as long as you can until you need to bring them back. Because it doesn't make sense for you to invalidate your access to TERS. Because the moment you bring them back, even if it's for a half a day, you can no longer apply to TERS for them. So any questions in that regard? Because I know I've said a lot.
No, I just want you, please, to go through the next
yes, of course,
right-hand side of your screen.
Obviously. So guys, this is what the regulation says, and this is how I am interpreting the regulation for its application to UPAT.
Okay.
Okay, you were also going to give us further insight into TERS and how we would go about it.
So I am working with Narita now. I've put her in touch with a person that I've used to, if you want, regularize and clean up applications from clients that haven't been successful. And she is making contact with that person as we speak to see, and I will talk to Carol as well and get Carol to expedite it for you. But basically, you've applied, you've been declined and rejected. There's very little way of understanding why they've declined and rejected you. And the big problem, of course, is that you have until tomorrow to sort it out. Because remember, I think they're going to extend the deadline, but remember their deadline, the UIF deadline, is for tomorrow. So we have to get your application, at least we have to get the emails in trying to regularize your application by tomorrow. And then we'll have as long as we need to sort it out. It's not going to go away once we put our foot in a peg in the ground, even if they're rejecting it. We can appeal against the rejections. But it's a huge mess. At the moment, Richard, you've got the minister saying not enough companies have applied, but he's actually lying to the public because hundreds of thousands of companies have applied, but they've all been rejected. That's the problem. And they've been rejected not because of their problem, but they've been rejected because of the system, which has, quite frankly, been written in India by contractors who do not understand our laws and our system. So you've got the Department of Labor negotiating with India about how the system should be perfected. And it's ridiculous what's happening at the moment. There's no local IT people who are working on the Dole system as we speak. It's crazy. It's stupid. But it will be fixed because SARS have taken it. And I actually had a chat to Edward Kieswetter, who I know personally. I had a chat to him yesterday, and he tells me SARS are working about completely taking it away from the Department of Labor, who've messed it up completely. So it will sort itself out. and then whatever hasn't been paid to you will be paid to you eventually. You can be sure of that.
Absolutely sure, huh?
How absolutely can I say? I have faith in Edward where I have no faith whatsoever in in this minister.
The Minister of Labour.
I think he's I think he's dangerous, quite frankly, but that's a different issue. And the commissioner is even worse.
Can I ask what, Narita, where are you in terms of dealing with this consultant lady?
I tried to call her because I've just got her number today.
I will make sure she prioritizes for you. I will make sure she prioritizes for you.
Okay. Because our applications have been rejected, so I just need her advice as to what to do.
All right. Well, I wanted to do it for you, basically, quite frankly, because she's the one who will go on the phone. She's the one who will get hold of her contacts at the UIF, and I wanted to clear it for you. And she'll tell you what she's going to be doing, etc. But I think that's critical. All right. Good. Okay. So let's go to the decision.
Peace of mind.
Yes. Sorry.
For peace of mind, I'm having something appear on my screen regarding Java Oracle out of date Java versions detected. Okay. For peace of mind, will somebody keep us informed, Kerry, Wayne, and I, in terms of where we are with the TERS system? Because while we are not registered, you need to tell us what we need to do for those employees that are not going to come back.
Okay. When I chat to this lady and she gives us advice, I will keep you informed.
Sorry, just repeat
we are registered.
We are registered, but we're rejected. Is that?
You're registered, but you're rejected.
We are registered. Yes. So Sage has helped us with the spreadsheets, which we've uploaded for both K, because we submit all the e-filing for UPAT and the students under K Industries and K Industries, and then Keatson's is done under Keatson's. So we've registered both companies, and we've uploaded the CSV files per the VIP payroll that the Sage lady assisted us with. But both of those have been rejected. We're trying to find a reason why, but I'll rather, Iva has given me a name. I'll contact her. I did try and contact her, but she wasn't answering. As soon as we get some advice from her, I'll communicate that to everybody.
Thank you.
Whose big sigh was that?
You going to?
Yes, all right.
Mine.
Iva, are you going to?
Yes, no, let me carry on. Okay, so the decision, lady and gentlemen.
Are you going to give?
Sorry, yes.
Wayne, a little bit of a rundown on where your cursor is now.
Yes. I'm going to go through it from the beginning. So what we're saying here, guys, is this. We're saying that the decisions we need to make are the following. And I'm just going to quickly go back here. And I'm going to just talk to Wayne here about this. So Wayne, this is the level 4. The first thing I want to say is this. This is the level 4 list of industries that was announced on Saturday, or gazetted rather on Monday, for consideration by various industries. Industries had an opportunity to give their input by 12 o'clock on Monday, and it's likely we'll see gazettes coming out tomorrow with changes to this list. But as things stand at the moment, these are the lists of the industries that can open. Now, just as Hilti have done, if you read through these lists here of industries, all the way from A down to R of sectors, then you will see that a number of these industries would justify UPAT opening up, because UPAT is a supplier of goods to many of the manufacturing sector, many of the construction sector, many of the wholesale and retail players, many of the mining and quarrying players, the repair and related players, and the supply chain sector generally as well. So there is more than enough justification in terms of this listing of industries and sectors that are allowed to open up. There's more than enough justification as to why UPAT should be opening up on the 4th of May. So what we were talking about before we got you on the line, Wayne, is that in terms of the discussions you've already had with Richard and Kerry, we want to go through the divisions now, and we want to make certain assumptions about how we will open up on the 4th of May, bearing in mind the regulations and the percentages that we spoke about a little earlier about what's in green over here. So on the 4th of May, we're saying, or whether it's the 4th or the 11th doesn't really matter, but from the 4th of May, we will open the warehouse with a skeleton staff, most probably about 15% of the warehouse numbers who will come back to work. And the balance of the staff in the warehouse will continue to be laid off so that they will qualify for UIF temporary employee relief. The numbers that Richard mentioned were 2 receiving, 2 dispatch. And we're saying that those 4 people constitute roughly about 15% of all of the people within that entire kind of an operation. As far as the operations themselves are concerned, that's admin, procurement, finance, and receiving, we have said that we're looking for the numbers there to roughly, that come back to work, will roughly be about 40% of the people who work in those divisions until the lockdown is fully lifted. In other words, until we're at a level 2 or a level 1 of alert in the country. And the numbers can change, but these are rough percentages that we're working on. And we're saying that, only 15% of, let's call them the blue collar workers, therefore, but 40% of the white collar workers are absolutely critical to have UPAT doing any kind of turnover as well. Just before we go further on this and these numbers, I want to go back to something that we were talking about earlier, and that's our communication to customers and our communication to staff. Because we started explaining what the current state of UPAT is currently, and we start off by saying that since April, we've seen a 90% reduction in turnover within the company because of the lockdown. And even though part of UPAT will be opened by the 1st of May, we only anticipate that 90% possibly coming down to 80%. In other words, if we were supposed to be doing 10 million turnover, we've done 1 million turnover. But after the 1st of May, we anticipate that if we're supposed to be doing 10 million turnover, we might do 2 million turnover. So that's the first thing. The other thing, of course, is we're communicating that senior management and shareholders have already taken deferment of parts of their salaries and commission. And for example, the most senior management have set that at 40% of their packages. All right. So we're talking here about the decision to come back on the 4th of May. So in terms of what's in yellow, this describes our warehouse staff skeleton and basically that entire operation, which would include your drivers, which would include your, warehouse is the wrong word to use. I wish there was a better word. I'm actually going to say the blue collar staff.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Because there are many more divisions than just the warehouse, but the blue collar staff. And then I'm going to say here, the white collar staff. Operations. So we're saying we're going to have 15% of blue collar workers returning and 40% of white collar workers returning. Now, I suppose collectively, colleagues, you have to make a decision. Are these percentages relating to the entire number of staff until lockdown is lifted? In other words, until we're at least at a level 2 or 1? Or are these explaining that first 33%? I would say to you that maybe from a skeleton staff perspective, we should say that we want to work up to, I'm going to say 30% of blue collar staff, where we're dividing it into 10% coming back now, 10% in the next 33, and 10% in the final 33. And then the same one-third division for the skeleton staff as well of the blue collars, just to give some kind of order to our planning. I don't know if any of you have any comments to make in that regard.
No, it seems reasonable.
Over how long a period are you talking about that? Third?
So what we said initially is that the first 33% of that group would come back on the 11th of May. So the first very small skeleton staff to clean and to put in the SOPs into the business would start on the 4th of May. And then the bulk of the 1/3 of skeleton staff for blue and 1/3 of skeleton staff for white would come back from the 11th of May. And then the next 33%, Kerry said 4 weeks later. And then the final 33%, Kerry said a final 4 weeks later. But you can change those 4 weeks to 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's absolutely up to you. But this is a process describing how people will be coming back to work.
Okay, I think that's got to be a little bit open-ended. Yeah. Wayne, would you agree with that, Kerry?
Yeah, the numbers
I think what I was putting over here is basically an illustration. It is not, you cannot be held to account for it. It's an illustration of what we'd like, how we see it happening, but it's not cast in stone.
Yeah, my understanding and just working through the numbers as I discussed with Richard is basically what I was saying. So it's fine.
All right.
It still worries me about the TERS thing, but
all right, so let's talk about TERS for the moment. Let's just do this. What are your concerns?
Can I just ask one question?
Okay.
Yes,
of course.
Ivor, before you do that, who drafts this letter related to people coming back?
I can do it for you.
And the fact that we will need to also apply, while we're putting it down in writing, it needs to be applied according to how the market reacts to this whole process going forward.
I'm happy to draft that letter.
Thank you.
In other words, our action plan, and then to put it into a letter of communication to staff as well, and maybe also to customers.
Yeah, can we just review the letter once you've done it before it goes out?
No, I'm not going to send it out. You guys are going to send it out, Wayne. I'm just going to draft the content.
No, I'm just asking that with tongue in cheek for everybody. I just want to make sure that my staff are going to understand what is written in that letter. That's all.
Okay. Well, the question is, who is going to send it out? I would imagine Diane, even if it's virtually. I don't know.
I think Charles sends it out on the WhatsApp group, the COVID WhatsApp group.
Okay, so there is a WhatsApp group for all staff members.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. And that's blue and white collars.
Everybody.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. So then I'll get that messaging, but maybe what we do is we do it for WhatsApp in chunks rather than in one big letter.
No, we have WhatsApp for business, so it's one letter is fine, Ivor, if you want.
No, what I'm trying to say is this. If it's going to go, for example, to a driver,
okay,
then we need to send it out in such a way that each idea is sort of encapsulated, not long-winded, and can be understood. And then we move to the next idea rather than one letter, because they'll get lost in the letters, or they'll cherry pick what's bothering them.
Yeah, anyway. I don't know if the group is set. I don't know if the group is set up by designation. I think it's set. It's one global group.
Okay. Well, we don't need to, stick on the point. I'm just making a general observation there. That's all I'm saying. All right. But I'm very happy to draft the plan, and I'm very happy to, get into this aspect of it. Very happy, because I think it's very important that we centralize communication as much as we can in this process. All right. So as far as TERS is concerned, Richard, I just want to deal with your concerns about TERS. All right. So let me put down what I think are the concerns. The concerns are that a huge amount of wasted time is being spent on TERS at the moment, number one. Number two, no communication with UIF, even though we try. That's both mails and it's also telephone. And Narita, you've basically tried to hang on for hours and hours and hours with them with no result. And you sent them
I have sent emails, and it's, mails, they just go into some black hole. So
absolutely.
Basically, no, there's no answers, no response from emails.
So I understand that completely. So we've got a major problem with communication. And the reason is we cannot remediate or rectify. So these are everybody's. You're not alone. You cannot remediate or rectify. As you know, we've started a national survey to see how many businesses have the same problem. And at the moment, we're sitting on over 1,800 responses to that survey from companies saying we've all got exactly the same problem. We cannot edit. We cannot, our emails where we ask them to change what we might have put in previously go unanswered. So we know we've got a problem. So that's the current situation. But what we do know equally is that we know that it is being rectified and it will be rectified. All right. So we know that it is being rectified and it will be rectified, and that eventually we'll be able to get something out of it. Now, what I mean by that is that eventually SARS will be managing it locally, and that will then mean that we will be able to remediate. All right, so there's no question about that the problem is a temporary problem. But what it does require, and this is important from your, and I think this is why you're concerned, Richard, what it does require is cash flow to keep, I'm going to say payroll, but I don't mean payroll. I hope you understand why I'm saying that, hey? To keep payroll flowing. You can't call it payroll because remember, part of the reason for the rejection on many of the TERS applications is you're supposed to be locked down, and that's the only way you can apply for TERS. So if you then say, but we are paying the people a salary at the end of the month, you're immediately declined from TERS because you're paying, so there's no need for TERS to kick in. So it's really very punitive, and those are some of the issues that, in fact, are currently being addressed as we speak. But I do need to make that point. All right. So, Richard, have I sort of encapsulated what your concerns are?
Yeah. Bluntly put, is it correct to understand that those people that are not coming to work, we need to continue paying them on the assumption that TERS will refund us?
Yes. There's no question about it. The regulations say that TERS will pay the employer as long as you've met their criteria.
But it will be according to that sliding scale.
Yes. So it will be, well, we don't know which sliding scale, because what we're finding out is even where they are making payments, the calculations don't make sense in terms of the regulations initially gazetted. So a sliding scale of some sort will be applied. So what are the regulations? Originally, the regulations said it would be 60 to 38% of salary to a maximum of 17,770 Rand. That's originally what they said. but they're applying completely different criteria at the moment. And that's what many of the companies who've been paid are taking offense to, that that's not what they're getting back.
Either?
Yes.
So just from my layman's perspective, so basically what that 17,000 Rand is, a high earning, or let's say a high earner would qualify for the 17,000, and they will only pay 38% of the 17,000.
Yes.
So they're only paying out 6,730 is the maximum payment they're going to pay out.
At 38%, that's 6,850 Rand odd.
6,730.
All right, whatever. So that's the maximum that anyone earning over 17,770 Rand are going to get.
No. So okay. So let's say that you are let's say that you earn 20,000 Rand a month, or you earn 20,000 Rand a month. That means that you fall into the scale which is a maximum payment of 17,000.
Yeah.
And of the 17,000, they're only going to pay out 38%. So that 38% will equate to 6,730 Rand.
So a 20,000 Rand earner, Wayne, is going to get 6,730 from TERS. Then let's say, for argument's sake, just for argument's sake, let's say they've got 15 days leave due. All right. And let's say that equals, for argument's sake, I'm going to say 20,000 Rand. I'm just going to say 20 because I'm saying it for a reason. All right. Okay. So let's say that. Then if there's 15 days leave due, they will have to take, what's the difference? It would be 6, 7, so it'd be 13,000. Let's just say 13,300, just for argument's sake. Okay. So there's 13,300 missing here. So there's a deficit of 13,300 there. Okay. So if you've got 15 days of leave due, you would take that 13,300 from that 20,000 Rand, which would then leave you a deficit of 6,700 Rand carried over as leave due to set off against the next month, basically.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I don't think...
The problem is with the guys who don't have any days leave due.
Yeah.
So if you've got a situation where there are no leave days due, then all you're going to get there is 6,730 Rand.
Yeah.
The principle is, and what you always have to understand here, all right? The principle is, in terms of this case study, that you have to adopt is no work, no pay. And that's the important thing. To qualify for TERS, it has to be no work, no pay.
Yeah.
All I know is, Kerry, you've got some significant challenges in terms of some of the salespeople who are not going to come back.
Yeah,
because
it has to be done.
Yeah, but hold on. Can we just talk about? Can we talk about the salespeople for a moment? Or in fact, can we talk about any valued staff members for a moment? All right. Your salespeople are not going to qualify for TERS because your salespeople are working even if it's only 50% of the day. So they're not going to qualify for TERS. So this is important for you to realize. Now, what I would do with the sales...
Can I just interject there?
Yes.
Okay, so when you say working, that means they are getting paid to work.
Yes.
That's why they're not qualifying for TERS.
Yes.
Okay. Is that understood by Richard and Kerry?
Yeah, because there's a letter I drafted for them this morning, and you'll see in that letter...
That's not...
Sorry?
In the communications we've had, Ivor, that is not understood, in my opinion. And that's what my concerns are, is because we are saying they are working, and a lot of people are saying they're not working.
The salespeople.
Yes.
So
according to what Ivor's saying is that all the salespeople are working,
No, I'm not saying all the salespeople. I'm not saying all. I'm saying of whichever ones are. So whichever ones aren't, they're considered to be laid off, and they will qualify for TERS.
Okay, thank you. Now that's clear to me.
Sorry, I'd like to clarify over here. We don't have any salespeople, sales reps going out and physically seeing customers. What we've been doing with them is they have been on email and WhatsApp and what have you, communicating with customers from home. But they haven't been, apart from a very small amount of business, they haven't been able to generate business. So if they're not actually physically busy with the customers, I would consider that as no work, no pay.
Yeah.
Wayne?
Yeah, Richard?
What I've done is I've sent to you earlier this morning at 9:30 a letter to salespeople, which Ivor is going to modify, which clearly says it shows that at least 50% of their job they can't do because they aren't face-to-face in front of customers. That email that I sent to you actually has the subject heading of the Quick Lab lease. So disregard that and look at the attachment, which Ivor is also going to change, indicating that already senior management have taken a significant chop in salary.
Yeah, I did. Before the meeting, I briefly scanned through the letter, so I understand that.
Okay. So, Ivor, what you're saying is, if any of those people have done 2 or 3 hours work per day over this lockdown period, we can't apply TERS to them. Is that right?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Richard.
So then how do we put them on suspension?
So, sorry, when you say put them on suspension, what do you mean?
Well, we don't need them
put
back.
them on.
Carry on, Kerry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, they have been doing stuff at home, updating customer information and so forth, but it has not been income generating. So therefore, in my opinion, they have not been productive at all in any way. And therefore, to me, they should be part of the package of people who are no work, no pay.
Guys, can I say here that if you have a situation where you have a supplementary agreement with them that says that we will, in your own capacity, we will make an ex gratia gift to you or a payment to you, but it's not payroll related, for your services, so that we are able to collect TRSs, that you are in lockdown, but while you're in lockdown, in your individual capacity, not as an employee, whatever you can do to help the business, we will appreciate that and we'll make a gift to you down the line, but it won't be regarded as payroll. Then as far as the UIF is concerned, these people through payroll are not paid anything. That's one way of doing it. I'm just trying to illustrate to you what your challenge is. But it is a challenge. And you need to be aware of it. You know, I don't want you to walk into a trap where you invalidate your access to TERS when you're counting on that access to TERS.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I would agree.
All right. Okay. So I'm saying I will prepare the communication with staff. I will also prepare a document explaining this what's in green here. We need to get our numbers right, and Wayne, I'd imagine that's what you have to do. I'm just saying you. It might be Kerry, it might be you, it might be Richard. I don't know, but
no. Richard asked me to do those numbers. I said I'll have them for him this evening. And based on that, I need to ask you, Henry. I need to ask you either when I start communicating with like the Kumbus and the Abels. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there's just a lot of background noise.
I'm going to I'm just going to do this and then just unmute your mic, Wayne.
Okay, so when I start communicating, let's say I phone Abel and I say to him, Abel, you know, who do you want to bring back? Because he'll bring one staff member back and Kumbu will bring one staff member back. I just want to know what my position is about expectation, because if I communicate to them and I say to them this and this, that means there's an expectation that they're going to come back.
So let me be on those calls with you.
You mean a joint call, or how do you?
Yeah, we can do it as a joint call on. I mean, when you say you're going to speak to Abel, you're speaking to Abel as a supervisor, right?
Yeah. So my talking to Richard was that I'll bring the Abel as the supervisor in and one staff member to help.
That's fine.
And Kumbu as the dispatch manager and one staff member to help.
That's fine.
My question is, if I speak to Abel and I say to him, Abel, I want you to come back, and he says, okay, he wants Brian to come back. There's an expectation that I am transferring to Abel and Brian that they're going to come back. And what happens if we turn around and we say, okay, we don't want them to come back? Is there any recourse that they have because I've caused an expectation?
So this is very important. Criteria for who comes back. We have to determine what your criteria are going to be for who you bring back, Wayne.
So at the moment, I've got a call from Gina, who told me that we have 2 LCLs that are going to be released, and we have 2 containers that are going to be released, and I can probably delay the release of the containers until the 11th, but that means we continue to pay storage charges, where I could get them probably released on Monday, which will reduce our storage charges. And when those containers arrive, obviously I need to have Abel and one staff member, myself and Charles and Kumbu, and we need to unpack those, unpack those containers and bring them into the business, and Gina costing them, and all the rest.
There's absolutely no problem doing that. The only question is, what is your criteria? Either you're going to completely leave it up to Abel to decide, or you're going to have a criteria for who that one staff member is that is going to accompany Abel back.
So I understand what you're saying. So my assumption would be that the staff member that would come back is the staff member that is qualified in all aspects of what Abel does.
That's good. So there's your criteria.
Yeah, and that would be the same with Kumbu. For instance, I wouldn't bring Kumbu's second in charge, which would be Sakile. I wouldn't bring him back. I'd bring a retail person back, because that's where I can manage both sides of the distribution, industrial and retail. Yeah,
that's fine.
Okay, so I can talk to them.
Absolutely, 100%.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
Please bear in mind that Herman is at the offices, and I will speak to him today and tell him what our expectation is of our expectation of him. We also have Causa there, and the 2 night watchmen, well, the guards.
Yeah, with due respect, Richard, I understand that from a pure labor point of view, and I mean that's just to unpack the container. That I'm grateful for that, and we will utilize them. We have been utilizing them. My point is, when I'm talking about staff members and not labor, I'm talking about members that can actually do the job. Because if I bring a Corsa into my stores, it's the same thing I've been saying all the time. I can't have a guy come into my stores where I've got to tell him how to make the cup of coffee, because then I could have just as well done it myself.
No, I'm talking about manual labor, him just doing the hard work.
The heavy lifting,
putting boxes here and doing this and pushing stuff there, instruction from Abel, and it is difficult times, but we're also not going to have the immediate pressure of get this product upstairs, it's got to be available for sale, etc. There's going to be a far more relaxed approach there, in my opinion.
Richard, yes and no, because one of the things that this does, one of the opportunities that this does give us is it gives us a bit of time to also do a big cleanup and reorganizing of the warehouses in preparation for the next 20% or 50% of business that will arrive and going forward. So I promise you, they are not going to sit idle.
I agree, but sadly, I've got to say the financial constraints are absolutely a first consideration.
But then like I explained and said, I hear the financial constraints, but I don't understand what you're giving me to work with. So if you're saying to me, Wayne, I'm giving you X amount of payroll to work with, and that means I've got to take that payroll and I've got to bring back staff according to that payroll, and I've got to deliver that type of outcome, I can gear the business to that. But if I don't have a vision or a goal to work towards, or how do you want me to execute your plan?
Wayne, at this stage, my belief is that I have no idea, and anybody who does have an idea, please share it. I have no idea as to how this slow opening up is going to unfold and what this is going to do in terms of our revenue stream. My concern at this stage is to keep the expenses to an absolute minimum. And if at short notice we then say, actually, now we do need Sakile, because there is a significant or a nice uptick or surge in orders, it then justifies it. If it means that we delay the tidying up and the sorting out and the reorganizing of the warehouse, I'm sorry to say, in my opinion, that needs to be on the back burner.
Yeah, Richard, I shouldn't have mentioned the cleaning up, because now that that is a focal point. That is not my intention. My intention is not to say that the focus point is to bring people back to a cleaner warehouse. That is not what I've meant, and I'm sorry if I miscommunicated it that way.
Okay, well,
my intention is to say that if we're bringing staff back, they are not going to sit idle whilst we wait for business to arrive or they are going to be busy with business. Whether it's
I agree to 2 people upstairs, 2 people downstairs, 1 counter salesperson, and we work with them. If there is a flood of containers coming in, we use the resources that are already living in the building. And if that's insufficient, then we say, okay, we'll add another person.
Yeah.
And
so
if
most,
still proves,
most likely what I will do is bring back the Kumbu and the Abel, then bring back their 1 staff member that you've allocated to me. And if I need anything after that, obviously it's a negotiation or an agreed we both have to agree to it. You and Kerry have to agree to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
we just jointly agreed to it.
But at this point, I have scope for 2 members in receiving, 2 members in dispatch, and 1 counter salesperson.
Yeah.
If I need any more resources than that, I have to discuss it. Well, I have to come to you.
And Kerry needs to decide which counter salesperson is needed, and then a communication needs to go to the other 2.
My suggestion to Kerry, if I may, is that we bring back Mark. And the reason for that is that Mark can help with technical calls, as well as invoicing, as well as the normal counter sales, where the other staff members are not as what's the right word? Qualified. I don't know what your thoughts on that is, Kerry. Yeah, Kerry, you're muted.
Sorry. I agree with that. Mark would be there. Mark is also physically able to do some of the assisting where necessary in the warehouse as well.
Agreed.
Ivor, can I ask another question?
Of course.
And Narita, this is actually somebody who reports indirectly to you, but and I'd like this to be kept in confidence.
Okay.
Incidentally, on my screen, it shows a participant by the name of Kate Kyle.
I think that's
no, that's
Narita.
my computer. Yeah.
Okay.
It's my computer, because I can hear you on the phone. I can't hear you on the computer, and I can see the screen on the computer. So you'll see me as in and Kate Cow. Sorry about that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You were having a heart attack there, Richard.
Ivor, I have a question related to Virginia Rogers, who is post 65, and she did write a letter to Kerry asking for continuation to work for the company on a 6-month sort of contract. And
when did she write that letter, Richard?
In about November or December,
okay.
somewhere there.
No, so it's not now. Okay.
And I've spoken to Ivor about this, Richard. I did mention that Sheila and Virginia are the people that, and nothing can be done about it until the lockdown is off. But we can prepare them and see if they want to do on a voluntary basis to go on pension now.
Okay, and how far are we with that?
Well, I only spoke to Ivor about that yesterday, so I haven't done anything yet.
Sorry, what are their names,
Okay.
Virginia?
And
Roger.
Sheila. Sheila spelt the Australian way, and she's in Durban.
Okay. It's in fact, it's not even early retirement; it's just retirement.
And now, what about Dean? Isn't Dean a year away from retirement? Was it?
Yeah, he's not at retirement age yet.
Yeah, but he's a year away, isn't he? Next year.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't do anything about that at this stage. The 2 people who are already beyond retirement are Sheila and Virginia.
Okay.
All right. So, Kerry, you and I will then work on a communication to them.
Okay.
Okay. Good. I'm just saying here as well. Either to write up green Wayne to write up yellow. I'll do that with you, Wayne. I'm just saying that we'll have different responsibilities there. And then Ivor to do communication with staff. Okay, good. Excellent.
Sorry, Ivor, are you going to open up a question time later, or
yes, of course.
Can I ask my questions
You can
now?
ask your question now.
Okay, so, all right. So I'm very confused about a few things. See, we ran the full payroll in April, okay, which was like, apart from some of the senior managers taking a deferment and some of the sales staff deferring their commission, it was literally a full payroll. So the use of leave during that time, if we're going to apply for TERS, how do I do this whole thing? I'm a bit confused about that.
So there's no problem with it having gone through payroll, but the justification for the payments, we need to figure out a way of classifying those payments not as payroll, but as prepayments against what's anticipated from TERS and the leave that's encashed. And the only reason I'm saying that is we need to figure out the kind of labeling that goes into your payroll, even if just into the reports, because of the fact that even though it's not required now we simply indicate that no payments are being made to the UIF. We indicate that no payments are being made to the staff who are on lockdown, so it's no work, no pay. That's not an issue. But if at any stage they insist on seeing the paperwork and the documents, remember they're saying that they can call on that at any moment in time, we need to show that any payments made were not payroll payments, but prepayment payments.
Okay, so am I right in saying that I don't pay UIF this month from the payroll?
You don't pay
because
UIF,
if I pay
and you don't
UIF,
pay
it means,
SDL.
Yeah, so SDL is a holiday, but I'm talking about this particular month. I don't pay UIF.
You don't pay UIF, absolutely. Well, no, sorry, you pay UIF, but you don't pay SDL. You have to keep paying UIF because remember, UIF is a benefit that they're still entitled to even if they're in temporary lockdown.
So do I pay only the company portion or employee and company portion?
Well, when I say you pay UIF, you have to put UIF through the system on a continued basis, but you're declaring zero income, which means that there'll be no amount that you actually pay to UIF.
Okay.
But as far as the payroll is concerned, you're continuing to pay UIF. It's just on zero balances. Sorry, I know I'm sounding obtuse, but I'm trying to illustrate a point. You can't stop paying UIF because a person is temporarily laid off, but the amount you're declaring UIF against will be a zero balance.
Okay. I'll chat to you offline about that.
Of course, yes.
But the main thing I
Carol
wanted to clarify now.
Carol will tell you how to put it through the system.
Okay, because I might have to redo the payroll based on not repay the employees, but I mean.
Did you not get guides on this from your payroll company?
From Sage? No, absolutely nothing.
Yes.
But it's fine. It's not an issue. But the main issue is the email I sent to you from Jeffrey Dawson, who was talking about fringe benefit tax.
Right, yes.
Yes, so I just need advice on that one because you said we can do an addendum. Please, can we communicate, give me some communication around that?
Okay, so let's put this down. Ivor and Narita to clarify communication fringe benefit tax.
Yeah, especially on motor vehicles, because his argument is that he has a company car, but he's not using it to go see customers. So hence, he shouldn't be taxed as fringe benefit.
Right. I tell you what I would feel more comfortable you're doing. I mean, I will get you an answer on this specifically how to put it through. I mean, I know what I've told my clients, but I want to get you an answer specifically. But what I do suggest you do is you ask your auditors as well specifically for how they want to see it put through the books, because different auditors have different requirements.
I did send the query to Candace, our auditor, but she hasn't responded yet. That's why I'm still concerned about that.
All right. So I'll get you a general response, but before you act on it, you very much do need to get a specific response from your auditor, because remember, they're going to be the ones saying it's acceptable or not, irrespective of what conventional wisdom says.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let's just see what we haven't addressed so far. So I wanted to talk about the communication. We've discussed that. Communication to salespeople, we've discussed that. We haven't discussed communication to Lunga yet. The level 4 application, do we open or don't we? We've discussed that. We've also spoken about how we will communicate with warehouse and delivery staff on a division by division basis to the entire business. And then as far as how we pay people during layoff, we've discussed that to some extent, but Narita and I will clarify that. So the outstanding factor, colleagues, is this, and it really only relates to Narita and I suppose Richard, but the outstanding factor is that I've sent you a draft letter of what should be addressed to Lunga. We have basically agreed that you are going to say to Lunga that during the probationary period you've not satisfied our requirements. So as a result, thanks but no thanks. Am I right in saying that, colleagues? You can unmute your microphone. I just muted you because there was background noise.
Okay. So basically, you want me to put that on a letterhead, and does Richard sign it?
Yeah, Richard must sign it, but you must just be happy with the content, though.
Okay, I'll go through it in detail. I haven't read it in detail. I've just browsed through it, and then I'll communicate if I want anything changed.
Richard, are you comfortable?
I think Richard's still muted.
Okay, let me unmute him.
Can I find you back? Okay, cool. Cheers.
Richard?
Sorry, I was muted because, and what I said was I'm busy reading through the letter as we speak, because when you sent it earlier, I was on another Zoom call. Yeah, Narita, if you're happy with it, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'll read through it once we're done here, and I'll communicate if I'm happy to you, Richard. I'll put it on a letterhead. Yeah. Okay, sure.
Fantastic.
Okay, and I think maybe a good thing is you let Kerry see it as well.
Yeah, sure. I will definitely send it to the both of you.
Okay.
All right. So, guys, that then, in a nutshell, is what I wanted to chat to you about. As far as the BBBE verification is concerned, there is a slight hold-up, and that hold-up is that SANAS have now declared that any of your kind of business doesn't have a choice, even though it's in general wholesale, it doesn't have a choice, and it has to, if 25% of the products you supply are related to the construction sector in any way whatsoever, you fall under the construction sector charter code squarely now. That is a change from when we first verified last year. They've now changed that, and SANAS has now changed that, which means that we've had to shift over in the verification audit to being shifted over to being audited against the construction code rather than the general code. But we've been working quite hard at it, myself and Gert, the auditor, over the last 6 weeks, believe it or not, because they've also been laid off. But over the last 6 weeks, we've been working quite hard at it. And there are just a couple of outstanding questions. And in fact, I will take those offline with Narita just so that it's literally just paperwork. But what I did send you last night was the Quick Labs contract that was originally signed, the later version of the Quick Labs contract that was originally signed that we cannot find at UPAT, because that needs to be re-signed and I need to then get Greg and his people to re-sign it as well. And Richard, I just wanted to find out from you what your expectation in terms of that agreement is, in terms of how you want to proceed with Quick Labs, because it will impact on this contract. So either Kerry signs this contract, and then I get Greg to sign it, or you change this contract if there are any clauses in it you feel that because of the current situation you need to change.
But what you're saying is, in terms of our BEE scorecard, we definitely need this in place for.
Well, we don't have a problem in the sense that it's this contract that has governed the last financial year. That's not the problem. The only issue is, do we want to change it in any way before it's re-signed to give to the verification agency, so that you're comfortable that when it comes time to collapse the contract, which is what you indicated you wanted to do, when it comes time to collapse the contract, you have the power to do it in such a way that you're comfortable with. That's all. So all I'm really saying is reread the later version of the contract, which is what I sent you last night. Tell me you're happy with it so that Kerry can go ahead and sign it.
Okay, I'll do so.
I'll ask a question, Ivor.
Of course.
Ivor, that 25% of items that changes us to the construction industry.
Yes.
Is that by SKU or by value sold?
It's by who your clients are. So if there's a percentage of your clients who are in the construction sector that you supply to, or any sector including retail, which falls under the construction sector, then you're in construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Richard, I've got another question for you. I did send you the documentation for K that needs to be signed so that we can get you that K verification at a level 2. How do you want to proceed in that regard, sir?
How do you want me to get it to you?
All I need you to do is sign it and just email it back to me, or even if you just tell me you've signed it, that's fine, because I can then, tell the lawyers to go ahead. They can't do anything until I think next week. The deeds office is opening next week, so from next week they can go ahead and do the various registrations they need to do.
Are you operating from home?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very happy to fetch it from you, though. I'm quite happy to do that.
No, I can bring it to you somehow.
No. Basically, I think the easiest thing would be, tell me when you're going shopping again. I will meet you at the shopping center and finished.
All right. Good.
If you understand what I'm saying. No one heard that, by the way. No one heard that.
Ivor, do you want me to do the same with this Quick Lab leases then
please.
As well?
Absolutely. That would be so useful.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. All right. So, right, good. Any other questions?
No.
There will be.
Guys, what I will do is I will distribute this this mind map to you as well, so that we've just got the record. And then remember that we're recording this. I'll distribute the link as well to the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate that.
Ivor?
Yes, sir.
Can I give you a call? I just want to run something by you.
Of course. Is this about the rash, Wayne?
Yes, it is about the rash, but you shouldn't have said it on the recording.
Right, no problem whatsoever. No problem whatsoever. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate that.
Well, have you got it as well?
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Bye-bye.